Welcome to Confessions by Banana Ketchup. Pretty sure my dog and I both saw a ghost. In 1999, I moved back to Washington State from traveling around the country for 4 years. My grandmother let me move in with her for a while so I could get back on my feet again. I hated the basement of her house, always have, but it was free rent and she was cool with Chuck, my 19-pound black lab. Plus, my grandma and I get along pretty well. Late one night, about 3 months in, I woke up because Chuck was moving around on the bed and he kept shaking the mattress. Then I heard him start grumping. You know those grumpy groans all dogs make when you scratch behind their ears and they love it? He started doing that. Once I realized what I was hearing, I sat up to yell at him to go back to sleep. That's when I discovered the reason he was moving around so much. He was trying to get closer to the woman standing right next to my bed, scratching him behind the ear. I didn't scream, and I'm proud of that, but also, what the actual F-U? Where did she come from? Who was she? Why the hell was she standing in my room petting my dog at 3 a.m.? I was too scared to ask. I did the only thing I knew how to do in these situations. I hid under the blanket. Certainly, she would be gone by the time I re-emerged from under the blanket. That's how these things are supposed to work, right? I waited for a little while, but when I came out from under the blanket, she was still there. So I hid under the blanket again, 3 more times. Every time I came back out, she'd still be there, smiling at me and scratching my dog's ears. The last time I was under the covers, I realized that I wasn't actually afraid of the woman. Chuck and I met under stressful situations, for both of us, and because of that, he and I had a super strong bond. I trusted him implicitly. If she'd meant me harm, he would have reacted to her negatively. His reaction was clearly positive, so I figured that she probably wasn't there to kill me. So I came out from under the blanket on last time, intending to deal with the freaky woman still standing right next to my bed. Somehow, I decided that turning on the light would make her disappear. I reached over and snapped the beside lamp on. I don't know why I thought that would work. Is that even a thing? Are ghosts supposed to disappear in the light? Well, I turned on the light and she didn't, so I don't think that's a thing. By then, she'd be standing at my bedside, petting Chuck for several minutes, and I was out of ghost-busting options, so I gave up on being terrified and just looked at her. Really looked at her. I can still see her right now in my mind, dressed up in a classy brown pantsuit with a cream-colored blouse. She had shoulder-length auburn hair, styled beautifully with these big loopy curls. She looked like she'd been on her way to a work party, and she only stopped by for a second to say hello. She was very pretty. She looked happy. I didn't have the nerve to talk to her, or at least I don't remember speaking. But I stayed present and we looked at each other for a while. I remember having a distinct impression of her knowing I was there, of both of us being aware of the other. Then she stopped petting Chuck and walked to the end of my bed, stood up straight and proud, and dissolved away. I mean that very literally. First her clothes, then her skin, organs, and bones, like that Nazi at the end of Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. I remember what her blood looked like as it dissolved away to reveal her skeleton. That should be a gross and terrifying memory, but I don't remember it like that. At the time, it felt like she was doing it on purpose, like she'd wanted to leave with the most dramatic exit she could manage. I remember thinking, this should scare the pants off of me, but also, wow. Somehow, I got back to sleep. In the morning, over coffee, I was going to tell my grandmother about what happened, but she'd just received an upsetting phone call. Apparently, her best friend from high school, Ursula, had passed away in the middle of the night. I'd heard stories about their teenage shenanigans, especially the one about the stolen birthday cake, but I never saw a picture of Ursula, so I asked what she looked like. I couldn't tell you what she looked like these days, but when we were young, she had the most beautiful curly auburn hair. That's not the only weird thing that happened in my grandmother's basement, but it remains the most vivid and least scary. Thank you, Snickerpants, the author. I think I encountered a demon. This happened when I was around 11. At the time, I had neighbors that owned this beautiful brick house that was over 100 years old. It was 2 stories tall and used to be owned by the Amish. They had completely remodeled it. They installed a bathroom on both first and second floor. There were 2 barns, a chicken coop, the whole package. The property definitely came chock full of history. My neighbors also had a daughter that was a couple of years older than me, and we became close friends. I would go over to their house nearly every day. I would go all through the old barns, play on both levels of the house, and have the most fun. Nothing about the property scared me. In fact, I thought it felt more like home than my own house. That is, until one day during the summer. We, my neighbors and I, were all outside enjoying the weather. I really had to go to the bathroom, so I ran to the house due to being quite a distance away. I always preferred using the upstairs bathroom. The stairs were steep due to how old the house was, and it was always fun for me to run up them. I walked through the kitchen and got to the base of the steps. I looked to the top of the stairs, and there he was. The memory of him is so fresh in my mind. He was a solid figure at the top of the stairs. He was an older man, white hair on the side of his hat and no hair on top. A black suit with no wrinkles, no fuzz, perfectly in order. Shiny white dress shoes with black accents, not a single smudge. I looked up to his face. The feeling I got then when I saw his face is the same feeling I get now. Pure terror. His expression was angry. His eyes were black. Not any shade of black I have yet to see again. The depth of his eyes felt like an eternity. I have never felt evil like that before. Seeing him, I knew that this was no random intruder. I could feel him. His presence was tangible. I knew he was not human. When I finally regained my senses, I ran out of the house screaming. I have never screamed like that before. I told my neighbors what had happened, and they immediately went into the house because they believed there was an intruder. Of course, nobody was found. I refused to go to the second story of that house alone again. I have never seen him since. I know he was not a ghost or some vengeful spirit. He was the embodiment of evil. I assume what I saw was demonic. Whatever he is, I hope I never see him again for the rest of my life. Thank you, FizzyKat, the author. The Hat House Ghost. Hello everyone. A little background first. I worked for an agency who employs people to work with adults who have cognitive disabilities. We were to assist them with activities of daily living, things like bathing, taking meds, cooking, cleaning, driving them places, etc. The house I was hired for was called the Hat House. Most of the houses were called by either the name of the street they were on or the acronym that their house had, so that's why this house had the acronym HAT. At the time, we supported an individual. I will just refer to him as Adam for the sake of confidentiality. Adam was non-verbal and could barely hold his balance while he stood. He would often fall down if he was standing on his own for too long. Adam's preferred mode of transportation was sliding across the floor on his butt. I'm not sure when this started happening, but things quickly began to get weird, and I think it was Adam's mother's passing. It started with Adam going to his bedroom and shutting his door, something he would rarely do. Adam would sit on his floor and rock back and forth, grunting to himself until eventually he would start screaming for joy. But then the jumping started. It was literally the sound of someone jumping on the floor, and it would make Adam laugh. Adam loved vibrations like that, so they would often make him smile or laugh. The jumping continued for a while, and it was like clockwork too. Every day around 2 p.m. he would go to his room and this would happen. Things quickly started to get weird though. There was talk in the house that other staff would occasionally hear footsteps coming up the basement stairs when nobody was down there. I witnessed this as well. I had picked up the overnight shift. Adam woke up around 4 a.m. so he came out of his room and stayed on the kitchen floor. I was sitting with him when suddenly there was this sound of someone rushing up the basement stairs and jiggling the door handle. My heart was literally trying to jump out of my chest at this point. All I want to do is go home, when suddenly from Adam's room I hear a deep voice go followed by the jumping sound we would normally hear around 2 p.m. Another time I was doing the dishes, and a supported person who lived at the house at the time, who was verbal, was sitting at the kitchen table. He had been talking to me, but there was a lull of silence in the room. I set down the sponge to get the heavy-duty pen scrubber when I heard the person I support start laughing. I turned to look at him, but that's when I noticed the chill in the air. When I turned back around, the sponge was in the windowsill. I asked the supported person what happened, and he kinda shrugs when laughing and says it just floated. I got suckered into working another overnight again. So I'm sitting in the office and it's 2 a.m. All of a sudden, the living room lights turn on. And since I had the office door open, I heard the unmistakable sound of the cord from the light being pulled. I kind of continued in the office thinking someone was awake and I just hadn't heard them, which didn't strike me as odd until I heard the beanbag chair in the living room being picked up. I went to see who was up when I heard the beanbag chair drop to the floor. Nobody was in the living room, and the only way to get in there was through the kitchen or the front door to the house, which was locked and that bolted. Another time I had an encounter with the spirit of Hat House was when I was in the staff office talking with a co-worker. It was around 10 p.m. The staff office had two desks, one with a computer and the other one right next to the door to go outside. My co-worker was at the computer desk and I was at the other desk. As we were shooting the skit with each other, I went to look at the desk when I noticed something standing in the window to the door of the staff office. All I can describe is the shape of a human, but it was made of smoke. After I saw the figure, I quickly turned around and looked at my co-worker, who was looking at me wide-eyed. I'm sure I had some sort of look on my face as my co-worker said, "You saw it too?" I worked at the Hat House for 6 years. Adam was there for 2 of those years. After Adam moved out, the paranormal stuff stopped as if it never existed to begin with. Thank you, I Can Eat 15 Acorns, the author. Thank you for watching, everyone. If you already haven't, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any new episodes. See you again soon, and until then, please, be safe.